I shared a kiss with my closest friend, and he developed feelings for me. Moving into a new city is always difficult. Thankfully, I have my friend of 5 years, Chance, to make it more bearable. However, having company does not equate to being able to navigate with ease. We were living embodiments of this. But 15 minutes away, or rather, it literally just said we were only 2 minutes away just now. This place real? I asked my friend Chance. He was clearly getting exasperated with the intense heat of Cornelius City and our non-existent sense of direction. We had been attempting to navigate through our phones for the past hour, and we were starving. I left it off and attempted to recalibrate our direction. As newbies in the city, we were both thrilled to explore the various hangout spots Cornelius had to offer. However, we had been quite unlucky at finding the burger joint that I had discovered online. Somehow we ended up in a long alley called Harrison Lane. While it was buzzing with chatter and life, I could not fully appreciate it because I was just starving. I could eat the next thing I see on a plate. That burger place be damned. And I suppose Chance shared my sentiments. And just go in. I pointed to the next food place I saw. Paper Rings, it said. Defeated Chance nodded and sauntered towards the restaurant. It screamed pink from its neon lights to the heart motif scattered outside the establishment. We were greeted by an almost full house with couples dominating the area. The place looks plenty of fun, from the karaoke machine to the photo booth and even a small dance floor, the hostess said. Beautiful. The two of you this way, please. She led us to a table in the middle of the room. It seemed as though everyone here was in pairs and relishing their date night. This isn't that bad, I commented as Chance and I settled into our seats, relieved that we could finally eat. With me as company? Of course, anywhere would be great, Chance teased, and he winked at me. I rolled my eyes but laughed at his antics. Since we were in high school, he had always been the cocky one in our friend group. Although he obviously meant it jokingly, it suited him. Deep down, he was a kind man who was an extremely passionate artist. We were given a menu, and to our disbelief, everything came in sets for two. So we ordered the set with 2 appetizers, 2 burgers, a massive plate of spaghetti, chicken lollipops, and 2 slices of cake. Everything looked scrumptious, I said, and as Chance and I bantered, I could hardly contain my hunger. Sorry to interrupt your fun conversation, my dears, but perhaps you'd like to try our karaoke machine. Another server approached our table. Surely you two would have as much chemistry while singing, chimed in the old lady who first served us. At this point, people around us were gazing at us expectantly. So while Chance looked puzzled, I pulled his arm and dragged him towards the karaoke machine. Oh no, Lou, this is embarrassing, he whispered while trying to force a smile. I giggled at his badly disguised miserable face and winked at him. Well, I'll show you what a good time really is. I selected the song Don't Go Breaking My Heart, thinking that this would surely appeal to the old people in the restaurant looking at us as if we were their next entertainment. Now we had to put on a show for them. Plus, it was my go-to karaoke song, and I played it so much that Chance knew it by heart. Don't Go Breaking My Heart, I started immediately. The people around us started cheering and bobbing their heads up and down as we relished the music. Chance started awkwardly but soon got comfortable and was encouraged by our very engaged audience. Mid-song, I felt as though we were in our living room, dancing in our pajamas and with no audience watching us. It felt like it was just him and me, taking in each other's presence and having a blast. I Won't Go Breaking Your Heart. We ended together. The other diners and staff clapped and cheered after we finished the song, and we smiled and waved at them before heading back to our seats. Quite the singer, aren't you? I teased. Hey, be glad I'm too nice to reject old people's requests, he retorted. More like you can't say no to me, I replied. He smiled defeated. True. Finally, the old lady who was our server headed to our table to deliver our appetizers, 2 Caesar salads. Surprisingly, she also had 2 drinks in her hand. Her salads, my dears, she said gently, and there are 2 drinks on the house for a lovely couple. She then pointed to the bar, where the stout man waved at us enthusiastically. I suppose he was the manager. Beautiful, darlings. Lovely, lovely couple. We're happy to have you, he said. Oh no, I started instinctively denying that we were together. Chance was stifling a laugh, but held it in and thanked the waitress and the man. Can't turn down free drinks. Boyfriend, he said playfully. Cheers, boyfriend, I laughed as I held the glass. Our entrees and dessert came shortly after, and we wolfed them down. We only paused to collectively sigh contentedly at the scrumptiousness of our meal. It was worth it ending up here, despite our initial plan. Awesome food, awesome people, Chance commented as he finished the last bit of his chocolate cake. An awesome boyfriend, I added. He echoed, an awesome boyfriend. Some cupcakes for you, my dear, said our server, bringing some red velvet cupcakes to our table, although we did not order them. On the house, of course. I hope you're both having a lovely date night, dears. You should dance, I suggested. Chance raised an eyebrow and looked at me quizzically at first, but soon we found ourselves bopping on the small dance floor. I was aware that some eyes were on us as we relished the music, our bodies getting closer together, but I did not mind. When I was this close, I could smell Chance's musky and extremely masculine perfume. I wanted to pull him even closer. The mint scent of his breath even wafted toward me as we danced to Lady Gaga's Just Dance, to the happy couple. Said the guy manning the music and pointed at us, "Kiss, kiss." We started to hear chants, first started by our server, who seemed to be relentless and wanting to be our #1 shipper. I gazed at Chance awkwardly, and he was also very adamant, looking around us and feeling ever so slightly pressured. I smiled weakly. Of course, there was no way we were going to kiss, but with our proximity being this much, I felt the urge to hug him or to have some sort of contact with him, anything to feel his skin next to mine. And so I kissed him on the cheek. I placed it on his smooth cheek tenderly and then looked at his starry blue eyes afterwards. They were gleaming with surprise, but looked ever so bright. "Oh," I heard the diners and staff collectively exclaim. Evidently, it was not what they were expecting, but I was relieved that the lack of real action could finally get them off our backs. "I suppose we're now Paper Ring's favorite couple," Chance said once the lady excused herself, and we started laughing hysterically on the dance floor. Something shifted that night. It seemed that Chance and I were getting even closer. Although we did frequent movie nights back when we were in our hometown, we were doing it almost every night at our new apartment. It always started off like this. I would be sitting on the couch, thinking of what to order for dinner. Neither of us could cook, and he would sit beside me, exhausted from a day of painting and drawing. At times, his hands would be smudged with gouache or pastels, and he would suggest food. We would then call the place and wait for the delivery. We ate quietly in peace, or at times we talked about how his new art was coming along. I also spoke a lot about my work as an accountant. Although my days were pretty mechanical, thankfully, Chance was a great listener who always invested himself in my convoluted and uninteresting tales. He was that good of a friend. Eventually, our movie nights and takeouts would turn into cuddle sessions. I was unsure of how it started or who even initiated it. I suppose the actual answer was we did it in unison. We would scoot towards each other subconsciously, and before we knew it, our limbs were entangled, and I would be resting my head on his chest. He would stroke my hair gently and draw circles on my arm as we cried over a Tom Hanks film or braved through a horror movie. There were instances when we even fell asleep on the couch, in each other's arms. We would wake up in the middle of the night, and sometimes the other would wake the asleep one, and we would both retreat to our respective rooms. But most of the time, we stayed that way until it was time for work. I swiftly felt comfortable in his arms and sought the comfort on nights that I was in my own bed. There was something about being enveloped in his strong embrace, with his veiny and muscular arms around my waist. I reminded myself that this was merely cordial. We were best friends. This was normal, or so I told myself. Beyond this blossoming friendship, we were also starting to explore a new city together. Chance, during his lunch breaks, would explore different cafes and order a cookie to go whenever he saw one. He knew how much I adored cookies and left some of his finds on the counter for me to bring to work the next day. He would even leave cute notes and continue to ride along the joke of diners at Paper Rings that we were a couple. "To my boyfriend, here's a double chocolate chip cookie to brighten your day," he wrote. I found this gesture cute, and I would also leave little notes for him whenever I could. I even found this cute painting set downtown that immediately made me think of him. I bought it and left him a note the next day. "You're the best artist in the world. There is no tool in the world that can give justice to your talent, but I hope this is the start," I wrote. Later that week, I was just leaving my workplace with James, a workmate and a new friend, when I spotted a familiar silhouette sitting on a bench outside. It was Chance, who was dressed casually and seemed to be uncontrollably shaking his leg. "Hey," I started walking towards him, with James slightly behind me. "Hey, I was just waiting for you. Remember that burger joint you were looking for on your first day here? Finally found it," he exclaimed. I shrieked with delight and asked if he wanted to grab dinner with me and James there. His face evidently drooped a bit when I introduced James, but he recovered quickly. I supposed he wanted this to be our time, but it felt bad if I were to ditch James. Since the skies were getting cloudy, and it seemed like there was an impending thunderstorm, James offered to give us a ride and also eat dinner with us at Archer's Burger, the restaurant that I had been looking for. While the food was delectable, the company was even better. For some reason, though, James and I did most of the talking, and try as we might to engage Chance in the conversation. He gave short answers and did not seem to return the excitement that we displayed. So I simply carried on conversating with James, not wanting him to feel unwelcome. He was an amiable guy who was a bit of a joker, so I could not help but chortle at his antics. Chance just flashed us a small smile and focused on finishing his Wagyu burger. "Excuse me, guys," he said shortly after and started to get up. "I have to leave. Got work to do." "Sure, man." Want a ride or something? It's boring offer, James offered. Chance shook his head permanently and replied, I'm good, thanks. See you at home, Lou. Without waiting for my reply, he headed out in the pouring rain. James watched as Chance's figure retreated and then looked at me curiously. I shrugged but excused myself and ran after Chance. Wait, I shouted as the first droplets of rain dampened my slacks and long-sleeve polo. He stopped dead in his tracks but did not look back. He simply stood there, soaked in the rain, and waited for me. Are you okay? I asked as I looked him dead in the eye. He looked exhausted. I'm good, Ellie. Go back to your friend. You guys seem to be hitting it off, he said. Hey, what's wrong, Chance? Are you not having fun? James is a really nice guy, and I'm sure you would love to befriend him if you were more friendly, I said. He snickered and shook his head. I'm sure he's a nice guy, Lou. Trust your judgment, but I can't do it. I was perplexed. Do what? Sit there and watch you? The one person in the world I'm sure I love flirt with someone else. I can't do it, sorry. I know this may come as a shock, he said, my heart thumping in my chest. I was flushed. Surely I did not even care that we were in the middle of nowhere, soaked to the bone. All I knew was that this man was too good to be true. All this time, I was feeling these odd emotions towards Chance, and you're telling me that he felt the same way towards me? I know this may be a deal breaker in our relationship, but frankly, you're leaving me with no choice. I can't sit there and pretend I'm happy. Sorry, I love you too much to watch that. You're nuts, he said. You're nuts for thinking that I'm flirting with James or anyone. In fact, you're nuts for not seeing how I feel about you, and you're absolutely nuts for not thinking I don't feel the same way about you, because I do. With that, I mustered up the courage and kissed him. It started as a tender kiss, as though it was merely placing my lips atop his, and then it turned more aggressive when he started to peck me right back. I put all my pent-up emotions in that kiss. My frustrations, my feeling that way for my best friend for the past few months, my burning desire for him, and everything in between. Does this mean we could finally go back to paper rings as an actual couple? I asked. Hell yeah, he replied. Very swiftly, we settled down in our little bubble. We did not even have a so-called honeymoon phase, because it seemed as though we had been like this since before we were officially together. Except there was a lot more kissing and plenty more cuddling now. I was unashamedly asking for cuddles whenever possible, and Chance, being the epitome of a good boyfriend that he is, satisfied my wishes. As good as he was a friend, he was even better as a boyfriend. This was indeed a lucky catch, and I could not be any more grateful. One night, however, it was getting late, and Chance was yet to be back home. I called him and he picked up groggily, confessing that he had fallen asleep on his desk in the studio. He said he felt very lightheaded and had the urge to vomit. So I grabbed my keys quickly and was out the door in a jiffy. Stay right there, babe. I'm coming to get you, I said. When I got there, he was burning up and feeling extremely weak. So I drove us home and heated up a cup of soup while he rested on our massive couch. We had upgraded to a sofa bed so we could cuddle in the living room while watching television. I had him bundled up in blankets, and he looked so peaceful, even while sick. I approached him hesitantly. He looked so peaceful in his slumber, and I did not want to interrupt his calm, but he had to put something in his stomach. Babe, have some. I offered him a spoon of chicken noodle soup. Patiently, I fed him until he finished the bowl and went back to sleep right after, taking his medicines. He was knocked out again, and I laid awake right beside him the entire night, monitoring him. I relished watching him sleep and was relieved when I felt he was no longer as warm anymore. I gently stroked his hair, and even in his sleep, his hand reached out to me, as if wanting to hold my hand. So, we fell asleep like that. I bundled him up in his blankets with his palm in mine. He recovered a few days later, and soon we could do our groceries together again. It was a ritual that we established when we first started dating, and it was one of the highlights of the week. It always started with us taking a leisurely stroll to the nearby grocery, hand in hand. How I loved Cornelius City. I loved how accessible it was by foot, and I loved how everyone here was so approachable. You could be walking past someone, and they would even smile at you or even nod amiably. Most of all, I loved how I got to enjoy its warm, beautiful weather with my best friend who turned out to be the love of my life. Groceries were always tricky because we both had the tendency to overspend. So starting last week, Chance took the liberty of listing down our necessities and essentially crafting a shopping list for us. It was easy enough, seeing as neither of us cooked, so we mainly bought easy to heat up or ready-made meals, but some snacks. Although his shopping list was extremely useful, I could not help but be a little rebellious and sneak some snacks that were off the list. It was easy enough to grab them without him noticing, but it was another thing when the snack I wanted was high on the shelf. That would be the time that I needed him to reach for the shelf for me, seeing as he was much taller than I was. A pout usually did the trick. He loved me too much to say no to me. Why don't we try to make spaghetti and cookies this week, just like the ones at Paper Rings? Chance suggested as we walked down the aisle of the grocery store. Dibs on the cookies. I grinned. We then looked up some quick recipes and soon found our cart with a lot more of the items than we had initially planned. When we got home, he started working on the pasta while I attempted to figure out the cookies. I was atrocious at these measurements, and frankly, Chance was not that much better in figuring out the spaghetti recipe he managed to search for. But alas, we attempted to do our best and make a home-cooked meal for once. Once the oven started beeping, indicating that my timer was done, it took one look and we knew we were in trouble. Holy! I exclaimed as I took out the tray, only to see the cookies burnt into a crisp. The kitchen was really not for me. Chance found this extremely amusing and started hollering but stopped when he realized I was getting upset. Oh babe, it's fine. My pasta is probably as tasteless as it gets. He chuckled, we suck at cooking and baking and now we starve. Or, he started, we can go back to Paper Rings and eat there instead. Why didn't we think of that the first time? Why did we even attempt to cook? I laughed. Let's go then. I took his hand in mine as we headed out the door and onto our favorite restaurant, New City. Now I can finally kiss you on that dance floor. Just like how I wanted to the first time, and I can call you my boyfriend without bluffing. Get out of here, Chuckle, he said, referring to the old staff who seemed to insist on calling us a couple. They aren't ready for us, and I surely knew they were not, because I frankly was not too. I came to Cornelia City to establish my career, be independent, and start my own life. Months in, I had found so much more and I had my chance. And there was no way in hell I was letting him go. The end.